All right, what's up? I've been, right off the bat, I can't talk. All right, I've taken a short break for the holidays, but I am freaking back. Glad to be back. How you doing, Danny?
Oh, I'm doing very well. Very glad to be here. Yeah, holidays it's easy to take time off and then hard to come back into the swing for sure.
For sure. And my day job is horrible around the holidays, so I'm glad that's over with. So tell my audience who you are and what you do.
Sure. Yeah, I'm Danny Two Forks. I am Daniel C, the drummer from the Wake goth band. I've been in the band for decades, and over the past couple of years, I created a persona, Danny Two Forks, and it allowed me to sort of step out from behind the drum set and do a little bit more where I'm programming, doing, playing keyboards,
Hmm.
singing, doing pretty much all the principal songwriting stuff. And it kind of, is a two-pronged approach now, kind of like that Two Forks thing where I'm the drummer in the Wake, but I'm also this other Danny Two Forks persona, which is
Hmm.
a little bit more of a side project.
Now, Two Forks, where'd that name come from?
It's kind of funny. It's a nickname I got in the neighborhood when I was a kid from some of my friends' moms because I had a healthy appetite, and I used to come, to my friends' houses after school or whatever we were doing, especially when I was, in bands when I was in high
Hmm.
school, and we'd be jamming here, jamming there, that kind of thing. And they they kind of named me Two Forks. I grew up in an area that was primarily um, Italian American,
Hmm.
and a lot of the ladies in the neighborhood were very matronly, and always when you walk in, Danny, you hungry? What can I get you? And I was never shy. I wasn't shy then. I'm not shy now.
Hmm.
So they would get together on the weekends at church or whatever they were doing, and be like, "Did Danny come over this week?" And they'd be like, "Yeah, he was over on Monday. He ate like 5 pounds of spaghetti. I don't understand what's going on with that kid." And after they would like commiserate with each other about it, they're like, they just started referring to me. The two forks come over. The Two Forks come over your house, because I would destroy the refrigerator. And then eventually, my closest friend, his parents bought a second refrigerator that they put in the family room, and they had to instruct me that I was only allowed to destroy that refrigerator and to stay out of the main one after eating their Sunday dinner a few too many times. So that name kind of, it was a badge of honor, but I was a little bit embarrassed about it. So I didn't use it a lot until recently. It was kind of like a repressed memory.
Hmm.
Most of the people, um, you know, my nickname was more DC, um, and that was kind of fun with all the the different riffs on that you can do with Washington DC, and then the brand and all the other things and the shoes and whatnot. So I was able to kind of ride that wave for a minute, but the Two Forks thing kind of made it full circle, and it sort of was easy for me to encompass that vibe of being gluttonous or whatever, and
Hmm.
just feeding that appetite just sort of fits the personality of Danny Two Forks, where there's like this insatiable drive and desire just to gorge and be sort of self-absorbent, much different than being the drummer in the Wake, where I'm definitely in the background,
Hmm.
and we use so much fog and the way the lighting is that people sometimes are wondering if there's even a drummer back there.
Yeah, that's
So
something I wanted to talk about more. Like, yeah, like you just said, you're very much hidden in the back as a drummer. Were you comfortable back there? Was, starting Two Forks being in the front, was that like a major, like, shift in your mindset? Was it like uncomfortable at first? What was your
it's
process?
different. It's on it. I don't know if the word is uncomfortable, but I certainly I feel the weight of that, of having to be out front. I performed live a few months ago for my debut live show, and as a one piece, as a solo one
Mm-hmm.
piece, a microphone, a keyboard, and my computer, an effects processing rack, and a lot of notes, because that's what I learned, is that when you're a one man band like that, all the weight of it is on you, and it can be uncomfortable, and I had to set reasonable expectations on what I wanted to do and what I can do. The show was very well received. You know, I had fun. I didn't feel like there was a time where I wasn't pulling it off.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's hard to self critique, and the feedback I got from people at the show was positive, so I've got to trust it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's definitely different. Whereas with the wake, I can be back there, I can hide behind my drums. There's a barrier between me and the audience. I don't really have to interact, so to speak, with the audience, although I do a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But it's totally different when you're 30 feet from the edge of the stage versus 3 feet from the edge of the stage. That's a whole different environment and biosphere, of which very rarely in my life have I had to experience.
Mm-hmm.
All of the different projects I've done, I've always sort of been in the back, and the writing process has been relatively relegated to drums, sometimes keyboard and bass. But it's been a different animal to have to write words, remember them, reproduce them, sing them perfectly like 5 times in a row. That's a lot of pressure. I don't know how people do it all the time. I'll tell you, I'd much rather just be in the back, hiding behind the fog. But
Yeah.
now that I've created this monster, I just have to kind of keep going with it, and I'm really enjoying the performing. Where there's other songs are planned. I've got a lot of stuff to release, and additionally, there's other live shows being planned. So all of that is fun stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
it's so different than just having to worry about playing drums and having my drum set be perfect. Having
Yeah.
to worry about all the little things that can just keep you up all night. So that's really the difference. Is I think playing the drums is more tribal and fun and less involved.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm Danny Two Forks, everything has to be 100%. That whole like I was saying earlier about the insatiable hunger, where the name came from.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the idea is that everything related to Two Forks has to kind of be handled in a similar fashion, where I have to do everything. And at the show, I actually sold merch that I made. I didn't screen print it. I literally made it. I painted shirts.
Oh
Um,
wow.
so that was a little different, and people loved them. I went and got like bowling shirts and union shirts. We're here in Cleveland, so there's all kinds of unions. So I got union shirts and all sorts of crazy shirts and dresses and whatnot. And I had a stencil made, and I got the proper spray paint for clothing. And after about 3 or 4 tries, I finally got the system down where it worked pretty well, and I was able to produce a couple of dozen and get them done pretty well. And it was a lot of fun. So that's the Two Forks way, is that it's kind of like DIY, very punk rock.
Mm-hmm.
Came out of that Cleveland industrial goth punk. You know, we don't need it. We don't care. Us against the world. here's my shirt I got at the thrift store, and I painted my name on it, and I gave them away free if you bought a CD. That was how I did it.
That's cool.
Right.
So you think that this Two Forks is going to be like a long-term ongoing project?
I think it probably will be. I mean,
Hmm.
I the Two Forks project is sort of like my version of maybe um, I don't know, like Calvin Harris or Leather Strip, or
Hmm.
any of these guys that are like really great producers and electronic music guys, but also are collaborators. So like David Guetta and those kind of guys, but more in the industrial kind of vein, where we start thinking about like Front 242 and bands like My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult,
Hmm.
and where there's a guy or two, Skinny Puppy being one of my favorites of all time, Ministry, bands like that influenced me from when I was really young. I mean, like, I'm
Hmm.
about their age, so they were like maybe a year or two ahead of me. So they'd be putting stuff out when I was a year or two younger than them, and that's the kind of stuff that I was listening to, getting played on college radio here in Cleveland. I just found a cassette tape, which is hilarious. I found a cassette tape, and recently at a thrift store, I bought a cassette player, and I played this tape I'd recorded college radio here in Cleveland,
Hmm.
and it had like, I was able to reproduce what I'd played on the radio in like 1986 or something like that, on college radio. And it was really good stuff. It was all like I just said, Ministry and Skinny Puppy and Front 242 and those kind of vibes. So that's really kind of how the project was born, was coming out of that. I'm a guy, but I collaborate. So
Hmm.
Gil is my collaborator in studio with Two Forks. He may or may not perform live with me. There may or may not be other iterations of Two Forks for live purposes only. Like I've been playing around with that a little bit. It'd be fun, but you start adding more people and there's more equipment, and the fun of what I'm doing in Two Forks now is I don't have to lug around a giant drum set and
Right.
and have all that stuff. So as I'm looking at the project for the future, um, it was fun to do it live, and I want to do it live again, and I think it'll be fun to add more elements to it. There I've worked with all sorts of visual effects people. I've been working with video projecting and different dancers, and kind of more performance art type live situations where it can be a lot more fun and not so obvious I'm just one guy there, like having
Right.
to do this thing. It's more to watch than just one guy. But that starts to scale up and make travel and all of the time commitments from everybody be a little bit more real. So I've been kind of threading the needle and getting away with it a little bit by
Hmm.
teasing into that world, by really leaning heavily into producing videos, which I'm in production on 3 videos
Hmm.
currently, and I've got 3 that are out in the public realm now for people to see, and get a taste a little bit more about sort of the kind of the vibe and vision that I have for the Two Forks project, because I think the videos do a pretty good job of conveying the spirit of the music and of the project as a whole. The 3 videos that have been released so far, from the Quanticode album, which is a concept album. So the videos do have a specific release order and tell a story, so to speak. Um, it's not like a novel that has a perfect beginning, middle, and end, but it's pretty close to that.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, the Two Forks project probably go on for a while until I get bored of it, and then I can do something else. But
Yeah.
I'm not leaving the wake. I'm not looking to do anything outside of the wake because the wake's not rewarding. It was just an opportunity during lockdown, frankly, when I had all this time
Mm-hmm.
to really play around with a lot of tools in the studio that normally I just kind of kick out of the way when I'm setting my drums up. You know, I was like,
Right.
hey, maybe I should like sit down and learn how to use this fancy stuff here, you know? So they always joke around about how the drummer is the guy who hangs out with the musicians, and I wanted to kind of break that stereotype a little bit. I was a classically trained piano player when I was young, and it was really joyful for me to go back to the keyboard as a main instrument and
Mm-hmm.
write, at this point, a couple dozen songs that I've been able to, play both keyboards and do singing and all that kind of stuff, and rely on people like Gil and Mark Gamir to help me with some of the instruments that I haven't really mastered well enough to get down on a recording yet, like the electric bass and the electric guitars. It seems like those stringed instruments are just really throwing me for a loop still. I'd have a better chance, I think, with a trombone than trying to actually jam out on a guitar for some reason. I don't know what's up with that.
So you talked about your album. It came out in October, right? Right before
Yeah, it was
Halloween.
October. Yeah.
How's the reception been for it? People like
It's
it?
been very well received. You never know with these kind of things. And there were definitely sounds and influences that I had that I, sort of referenced and wore kind of on my sleeve out in the open. And it was, um, a lot of the early reviews picked up on all that stuff. So I
Mm-hmm.
kind of felt like I had some success in at least that somebody other than me or those people closest in my circle sort of understood what I was trying to do, where I was
Mm-hmm.
coming from, and what the album was all about. So that's been really really cool. And the marketing and promotion for it is really just cranking up, and there's been a lot of reviews, and the streams and stuff are there. So it's more about, for me as an artist, it's more about creating new content,
Mm-hmm.
and I always struggle looking in the rearview mirror and slowing down enough to try to do those things you're supposed to do when you're, like the group or the brand or whatever. I'd rather just sit in the studio and just create all the time
Mm-hmm.
and throw little nuggets up here and there for people to enjoy, and then release an EP or release a single, make a video. But sadly, I got to spend a lot of time like talking to people about setting up posts and doing all of this marketing and stuff, so that all the things that I've done to create, like, other people get to enjoy and share in that too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for me to do that because I don't have a preconceived notion of what the project is or isn't or can be or can't be. And I, my goals are just to create. So the fact that I did that, all of this other stuff is wonderful gravy, and I'm enjoying the heck out of it. And I'm trying to figure out how to do it all, and I'm just having to rely on help from everybody that I know and don't know, and hope that I don't really step into too many big bear traps.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been kind of how it is it's been a really fun thing to do. And at the same time, like I said, it's a heavy weight too, because I can't just sit in a corner and complain about what somebody else did and Monday morning quarterback that and say, oh, we should have done this or should have done that and
Mm-hmm.
whatever and blah blah blah. There's an old saying from the neighborhood that um, if my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle. And that's kind of like how it is when you complain about work somebody else did. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm complaining about the fact that maybe it should have been done X, Y, and Z, then I should have done it that way. And now I don't have anybody else to complain about besides me, who should have did it the other way. So,
I understand.
yeah, it's lonely. It's lonely, when you have to do it that way. So I've been relying on help from everybody. The Wake has been helping me too. Anytime I do anything, they post about it. And then Rich Witherspoon, the guitar player from the Wake, is a very accomplished artist, and he does all of the graphic design related to the stuff going on with the Wake. And he was kind enough to agree to do the album art for Quanticode and subsequent other marketing images that I've been using, which has really been helpful because he and I have got so much history that when I'm describing how I want things to look, it's just like when we're making music together. We're finishing each other's sentences, we're finishing our musical phrases together. And now when I say I have this vision of how I want this image for the album to look, he's able to recreate that with relative clarity. And I don't want to say ease, because I know it's a whole lot of work, and he's his own biggest critic and is just all over the stuff. But it's easier that we speak the same language and don't have to deal with that language barrier. So it's been enjoyable to be able to get help from people that I've known a long time, that I haven't really had to rely on for anything other than, can you watch my jacket while I go to the bathroom? Now it's like, hey, can you teach me how Facebook works? Yeah, it is what it is. Spotify has been interesting, all of those things that I've been happy to not have to deal with. Now I've got to deal with all that stuff. So just been asking a lot of questions, and like I said, hoping the bear traps, at least if they're out there, that they're only taking off a toenail and not the whole toe.
Actually, I wanted to ask about that album art. What inspired that?
So, which part are you talking about? Like the front cover with the bee on it?
Yeah.
Like that thing?
Actually,
so
I'll pop it up here real quick.
Rich would be the right person to ask exactly what it was all about, but we've been working with similar styles of images for a long time, and the bee motif has been one that's come up a lot. We live in Ohio. It's a very agricultural area. I'm in Cleveland, which is very much the city kind of vibe and gritty and industrial. The Wake is in Columbus. It's only 150 miles south of here, but it's a completely different world over there. There's cornfields everywhere, and it's very agricultural. And the bee is something we all rely on and understand very, very succinctly, that our livelihoods and our crops are completely reliant on these little bees. And it's scary to think about what would go on if all the bees died. So it's one of the bee on the cover. It's no bee was harmed in the making of the artwork, I can assure you that. But the bee, the dead bee on the cover, and the hues, the blue around it, is supposed to signify that fear of there could be something so small that you're used to that just flies around you all your life, that if it disappeared, your entire world would be gone. And that's sort of what the little clues in the album art throughout the artwork are in there. There's a cipher in there too that was a riff on one of the serial killers that use ciphers. There's multiple different Easter eggs, so to speak, things throughout the album art that um, would be typical things that somebody that historically was in the mindset of one of these split personality type
Mm-hmm.
psycho killers would do. So all that kind of stuff kind of made it into the album art, and is sort of why I wanted to do an album and not just singles. Each
Mm-hmm.
single reinforced the themes that came from the album. As a new songwriter, where I had to write lyrics and present a body of work as a whole, um, I used it as a crutch. I find out that it sort of helped me to have talking points and other things of that nature, but I used it as a crutch to come up with um, sort of the theme of the body of work as a whole, so that when I had to write lyrics and write songs,
Mm-hmm.
as someone who from a creative arts background and creative writing, um, it was easier for me to write the lyrics and come up with the concepts for the whole album, to think of it more like how I used to write when I was doing short stories or books, and sort of break it down in an outline where each song was like the chapter of a book. And
Mm-hmm.
then all of a sudden, instead of sitting there with my notebook going, what am I going to write? I had at least some bullet points, and then I could fill that in as I was trying to come up with the lyrics. And it's amazing how clarity, gets involved when you have time. During lockdown, um, staring at a wall for hours or whatever, it's like I could actually get clear enough where I was able to really put a lot of these thoughts down on paper quickly. And there's about 15 songs recorded in about 7 months, and then spent about another 3-4 months
Mm-hmm.
refining, mixing, adding the live guitars, and trying to figure out how I wanted to present it as a live show, and all the video work that went on to produce the 3 different videos, 2 in black and white and 1 in color. So that was kind of like the big push, and all of a sudden, boom, there it is. And now I'm like, oh, I gotta figure out how to. Oh yeah, I can't just go and set up my drums, and yeah. So that's kind of been how it came about. The album art was me leaning on Rich, and the whole bee motif thing, and that the color and all those different Easter eggs in there. It sort of was all came together as part of what you would anticipate that a serial killer would kind of come up with.
Mm-hmm. Now, the song in particular, "Bad Fucker Unsub," why'd you spell it with double K's? Out of curiosity, was that some sort of random Easter egg, or is that just a stylistic choice?
Um, that was a stylistic thing. There's it has to do with the split personality stuff. I was doing some stuff for the video's not done for this song,
Mm-hmm.
but I was doing some stuff where there's a lot of mirror image stuff, like in the I Feel Lost video. There's a lot where my face is chopped up, and in Bad Fucker Unsub, there was like a mirror here, and you're seeing one side of my face, so it's actually looks like a whole face, but it's only one side.
Mm-hmm.
And having the 2Ks was supposed to be like back to back, like a mirror image. So it was stylistic in that regard. And I also, I don't know, it's kind of old fashioned, but I didn't really want to have specific curse words printed out on anything, even though it's clear what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's a piece of something sitting around somewhere, and I just didn't really. I felt like there's so many great artists out there who don't swear or have to use vulgarities to get their point across. Even the Wake, I think there's only 2 songs that have 1 swear word each in them that we do, and so that was part of it too. So it was those kind of reasons where stylistically I was looking at the Ks to go back to back. I couldn't figure out how to get the font to flip them easily, so I just left it the way it was. And I knew that when I was filling out the stuff for all of those, places where you got to put the track names in and all that, asking them to put a backwards K was going to be probably a big ask.
I don't know if they can do it for Korn, they can do it for you.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, they probably got it in there for Korn. I'm like, I'll use that. It's not a coincidence that Two Forks, the group, starts with the number 2, because I always wanted me to be at the front of the catalog, at the front top of it. So now that I've had some reviews in actual print magazines, it was great. Like, I opened the magazine, I went to the table of contents, and when it said reviews, mine was the first one because they listed them all alphanumeric. Yep. I was like, yes.
There you go.
Even if that's the only time it ever works, I'm like, it was worth it. Because I had to decide if Two Forks was going to be spelled with the number or with the letter TWO. And I wanted to go with the number. And that was one of the reasons. I'm like, I'm always going to be at the top.
There you go.
Right.
I also noticed the song "My Time." I feel like it really stood out. I don't know, it had a different vibe. It almost read like hip hop to me.
Yeah, that has a hip hop beat in it.
It was funny. I was, listening to the album, and I'm like, yeah, hanging out, listening to it, and then I'm like, wait a minute, when did I start listening to 2000s hip hop? What happened?
Exactly. Yeah, kind of. There's a few times in the album as a whole where it takes like a shift. There's 3 or 4 songs where it goes off on a tangent, and even the songs that are stylistically the same, there are several within the same style that don't follow normal song structure. And it was one of the things that I enjoyed about the freedom of creating this way, was that I didn't have to fall into any of my personal normal patterns or any of the stuff that I would normally do. So I was able to, like I was saying, how the album is a themed album. It's a concept album of a serial killer with a split personality. It's a they. It's never certain if it's a he or a her, a she or a him. It's a they. And the serial killer takes on so many different personas that the songs themselves had to be different in some cases, because in this particular instance, they were taking on this personality of a person that would like this kind of music versus someone who wants that kind of music. That's why there's some hip hop. There's some definite like 90s aggro metal vibe on there. And there's all that kind of 80s disco style industrial that I love, the industrial dance. And the industrial dance stuff is sort of like the main core of that personality. And then the other songs are breaks from that main personality, when the split personality is the most off into a tangent somewhere where it's a total break fugue state. And in my videos, a lot of those spots you can see where my character's just covered in blood. It's like obvious that they're just completely out of their mind. And it's been really fun getting to do a lot of these videos and play around with a genre that I really like a lot, which is, I've always been a fan of the classic 80s kind of slasher horror movies, all those, Evil Dead 2, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I mean, that was what I watched, all the time when I was raiding my buddy's parents' fridge, so it just became natural that that's where I gravitated. And it was fun to not feel restricted that I had to only do one style. I can tell now that because I'm done with this album and I'm working on new material, which I'm about halfway through enough to do like another full album release, that the music has evolved to be a little bit more identifiable as a singular genre, as opposed to
Mm.
the concept Quanticode album that has a beginning, a middle, and an end in the concept and in the story, but the music sort of arcs and has peaks and valleys. There's definite singles in there, but um, the album has an album flow and wasn't really anticipated to be judged as just a collection of singles,
Mm.
because it wasn't done that way. So now that I've done that, I'm forcing myself to just do what most artists of today do, which is just release singles and then eventually some sort of EP with remixes and stuff like that, and just work on a little bit more of a track by track basis, as opposed to trying to do another 11 track concept album. I don't want to make people um, have to digest that much
Mm.
at each time. I think that it's a lot to ask, for someone to even think about an album anymore. It's such an old fashioned concept, but you can see I'm sitting in front of a big pile of vinyl here, so just something I'm used to.
I mean, I'm totally pro album. I don't like. I mean, I'll listen to just singles, but I prefer a full storytelling album. That's just me.
Yeah, I think it forces you to be a little bit more real in the work.
Hmm.
Like I said, I did an album, then I had to think about how am I going to present it live and all this and that. So I think that if all I was focused on was a single, I wouldn't have had to put as much care and as much thought into all the different
Right.
facets of what I had to do. It just makes you think a little differently. It's a snack versus a full meal kind of thing.
Speaking of snacks, what's your favorite tour snack?
My favorite tour snack is like the various different kinds of Cheetos and those corn puffs.
Mm.
And it's ridiculous because you have to have like a canister of like Lysol wipes or something to get all that orange stuff off your fingers and face afterwards. And everybody knows where I've been hanging out because those crumbs are everywhere. But a good runner up are just plain old pretzel rods too. But both of those are good, and depending on what state you're in, pot brownies are great too. But that's only if you're not driving.
Yep. So, what do you think is the most important lesson that you think you've learned, being in bands and doing music for so long?
The most important lesson I've learned being in bands doing music so long, I would say the most important lesson is that kindness is around every corner. I spent the better half of my 20s getting along on the kindness of strangers, just touring from city to city and just having people be kind. That here, sleep here, let me feed you, let me take a
Hmm.
shower in my house, whatever. It's unbelievable. Now, as far as like the lesson I learned in a band, is just basically to be more of a listener, and don't do as much talking. Um, that's about it.
Okay. Um, if you were a salad, what dressing would it have?
It'd probably be a balsamic vinaigrette, because it'd be full bodied and it'd be sweet, but it would still be complex and classic at the same time.
All right. Funny you said that. I've actually been keeping a tally, and that is my most popular answer of the year.
Everybody loves that dressing.
They do.
I
Um,
could have said something vulgar and been more like a ranch dressing, which would have been more a two forks answer, and start making like some vulgar motions with my hands and stuff. But we're not going to do that.
Little Easter egg for my fans out there. If you remember who the first person who ever gave me the balsamic answer was, he's winning the free T-shirt. I've already divvied it up.
There you go.
If you know who that is, I'll announce it soon. All right. Where can people find you?
Well, people can find me at twoforksmusic.com.
Mm-hmm.
That's a place that's sort of like a hub to everywhere else. The music's available, streaming services, all of them. Um, the usual places. Videos are all up on YouTube, and there's links to everything at that twoforksmusic.com website, just the number 2forksmusic. So it's pretty easy.
All right. And what do you want to say to your fans or new fans that you made today?
I want to thank the fans for appreciating this kind of music because industrial, kind of like that dance industrial genre, is something really near and dear to my heart. I've been doing goth for so long. I love that too, but this kind of like dance floor ready industrial, something that I really loved in the '80s, and I'm really happy that people are still listening to it now, and I just really thank everybody for the support that I'm getting and making me feel comfortable in this role of being the guy out front and not really making me want to crawl back behind the drums and hide. So I appreciate that.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on here. This was a great interview.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
Yeah, you too.
All right.